Hello everyone and welcome to episode 8 of Ask the Boss. We're thrilled to have you joining us here, and equally I'm thrilled to have not only the chairman of West Tigers but also the principal of Bryden's Lawyers, Mr. Lee Hagipantelis. Welcome.
Thank you, Justin. Very happy to be here. A little surprised though. I thought you might have been able to find someone more interesting and engaging.
No, there's no one more interesting and engaging than yourself.
It's not what you were saying 5 minutes before we came on the air, Justin, but anyways, moving on.
You know how this works, obviously, that there are questions that have come in from our fans and our members. We go back and forth asking those questions and hopefully providing the answers that our members and fans are wanting to hear. But I will start with a question that's actually not written down here. Why West Tigers, and how did you become firstly involved or passionately supporting one of the two foundation clubs, I'm assuming?
Well, it goes back quite a way. I grew up on the Central Coast, which many people would be aware of, in a traditional Greek takeaway at 161 Ocean View Road, Edelong, which no longer exists, unfortunately. And around the corner in Murray Street lives Steve Lavis, who, of course, known as Stopper, played for Balmain in the 70s and I think in the early 80s, who's now a board member for Balmain. Steve would come into the shop on Sundays, particularly after the game on the weekend. He would bring in other players from Balmain, and as a young fella, that's all it took, meeting a Balmain player. So I became a Balmain fanatic as from that time, and of course transformed into a West Tigers fanatic in 2000 and never looked back.
So obviously the transition from supporter to fan to no doubt member to support to sponsor to major sponsor and now chairman of the club. How does that make you feel personally?
Look, it's overwhelming and it's humbling. I can still remember the day that your predecessor presented the opportunity to sponsor, and I think we were on the sternum, the first sponsorship for the club, and I was overwhelmed to see the firm's name on the jumper just in itself. And of course, that continued on for a little while. Then the opportunity became available to become the major sponsor, and to see the firm's name on the front of the jumper, as I say, humbling and overwhelming. But in terms of the chairmanship, that occurred, of course, in November of 2019. And I said at the time that was a personal endorsement by the club of me, not Bryden's Lawyers. And I found that extraordinarily humbling. That was overwhelming at the time, and I was very, very taken by the faith and the confidence shown in me by the board to invite me to come on as the chairman. I've been chair now for 3.5 years. I've been major sponsor, I think, for 7 or 8 years now. I've loved every minute of it in both capacities. And
the last month, obviously been a challenging year in regards to wins and losses, but the last month, 3 out of 4. How are you feeling about where the club's at and where the team's at?
I'm feeling very comfortable. I think we made a lot of changes last year, a lot of very significant structural and cultural changes. Some very difficult decisions were made. I think what we're seeing now is the fruits of those decisions. I think there's vindication there that we are on the right path. We're not there yet. Last weekend's victory, of course, putting 66 points on the Cowboys was just outstanding and a credit to Tim, Benj and the boys. But it's just a step along the way, a very big step, but just a step. But, we're only halfway through the first year of a 5-year plan. But I think we're all comfortable to the extent that we can be, that we are on the right path.
Very good. First question is from Chris, and that goes out to you, Lee. There's been reports in the paper of recent that the coaching structure that we've committed to may not be as we've committed to. Can you verify or add any value to that comment?
No, none at all. Tim Sheens is the head coach for the NRL team for 2023 and 2024. Benji is the assistant coach for 23 and 24. Benji will be appointed head coach in 25 and beyond. That's the coaching structure that was ratified by the board. That was the proposal that was put forward. I can't even explain how much work went into putting that proposal together and the number of phone calls and meetings that were held to make sure that everyone was on the same page and was buying into that vision, and they did. We've made that commitment. As I said earlier, I think it's working. I think we're on the right path. Benji's elevation to the head coach in 25, I expect will be seamless. I think his transformation to head coach has already begun in the sense that He's exceeded expectations as to where he should be now as part of his apprenticeship. And you can just see it, little things where he's adopting a very dominant posture. For example, Luke's 200th presentation on the field, Benji put his hand up to do that, the sort of things that head coaches do. So I think, as I say, the 2-year plan, Tim's conceded openly that he's the transition coach, which is exactly what he is. And I think if I read between the lines correctly, I think Tim's plan is to make sure that he hands off to Benji in 25 a very competitive West Tigers team.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Chris, and one that I think has been answered well, because there has been some speculation about that recently, and I know I speak to Lee and the board regularly, but the process around that appointment and the thought that went into it and the commitment that this club has to 5 years remains as it did when we made that decision.
Yeah, we're not going to create drama for the sake of creating drama.
Well, it doesn't need to be created because
working.
it's actually working
it's
really
working,
well.
so we leave well enough alone.
Another question. It's great that we're getting back to our 2-stadium policy, been heavily in the papers last week after the Leichhardt game. Going back to Campbelltown and Leichhardt to start to get back some identity, but when are we going to have true West Tigers pathways where it can be West Tigers team reserve grade and not the Magpies? Troy Clancy.
Thank you, Troy. The short answer is we do have genuine West Tigers pathways, all the way from West Tigers and Macarthur, Group 6, through Balmain, through West Magpies, through the West Magpies Coe Cup team into the West Tigers NRL team. Because of the particular nature of the corporate structure, the resolution of all of any corporate issues that existed as between the stakeholders some years ago, the resolution did provide that what you see now was agreed to. It's in place. I understand the questions raised as to why we don't have a West Tigers reserve grade team, but a lot of clubs don't. I think we saw recently another club sign on as a feeder for the Roosters, I think, somewhere different than North Sydney.
There's several clubs.
Several clubs as well. So it's not unusual to have a different club as a feeder through the Coe Cup and the State Cup into the NRL competition. However, having said that, our Coe Cup team are as much a part of the West Tigers as any other reserve grade team bearing the same name as its first grade team. The boys are provided for here at this facility at the Zurich Centre of Excellence. They train within the top 30 roster. There's a lot of crossover between the two teams as required. So if there's any suggestion that there's a demarcation, it's wrong. They are as united, and even though they may bear a different name for the Coe Cup and wear a different jumper, they are as much part of the West Tigers as any other team in our Pathways program.
And I think that's a really important point. And Troy, it's another good question, but I think the philosophies, the coaching philosophies and everything that we do culturally around our first grade and even down to Flegg and below that, it runs the same through obviously Coe Cup. Yep. So where they may not be identified in terms of West Tigers jersey, certainly the way that they are treated and act and how they perform is exactly as West Tigers.
Any perception to the contrary is external.
Yep,
internal, correct. They are seen as part and parcel of the one club. Now, I think I've got a question for you, Justin. This is from Nathan Ross. Thank you, Nathan. When are we going to stop the changing of jerseys every year?
Nathan, thank you for your support and thank you for your question. Obviously, it's something that we consider and work with our kit supplier, Steeden, every single year. I think you've seen some level of consistency over the past 2-3 years in regards to the chevron and having a home and away strip. We'll try and maintain that moving forward, and then obviously we work in conjunction with certain specific rounds to create some jersey designs, of which you've just recently seen a week and a half ago, the Indigenous jersey, which I think was one of our better jerseys and certainly had a host of purpose and meaning behind it. So I get the point. We are trying to maintain those home and away for a level of consistency. So when people turn on the TV, they actually know that it is West Tigers playing, and that's the philosophy that will continue.
Well, I declared publicly, and I'll say it here, I thought the Indigenous jersey for this year was the best commemorative jersey that we've ever had. Indigenous or otherwise. It was a real credit to Brett Naden and all the boys who contributed.
And sold out very quickly. Yeah, so
well done.
Is there anything the players, coaches and staff This is actually a question that you should be asking me,
Well,
so I've
let
jumped the
me
gun.
ask. No, let me ask. Stop intruding into my space. Is there anything the players, coaches and staff would like to have at the Concord facility that was omitted from the design?
Milton, thank you for your question. I don't believe so. I think we certainly have had plenty of discussions after moving in for a month, and then we had further discussions after 3 months. We're continually there's a bit of equipment downstairs in the gym that we've added. The only other challenge we had was really around IT, which we've now sorted given the size of the building. But other than that, it's been exactly designed, or it's been actually utilised for its perfect design. So the players have loved it, the administration staff have loved it. I still get a pinch myself every time I come in to think about what we've collectively achieved to make this a reality. So to answer your question, Milton, no.
It's a very pleasing outcome when you actually, the vision becomes a reality and works just as well.
And I think to that question, Milton, the amount of best practice, benchmarking and input we had from skilled people in their field to make sure that this facility actually had everything that we needed as a elite organisation has been very helpful as well. Can you tell us, Lee, more about the thinking of bringing a new head of recruitment to the club in Scott Fulton, and what do you hope he can bring to the club? That's from Sam.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam, for the question. Somewhat a little bit more controversial than yours, but I'll do my best. The opportunity to engage with Scott presented itself pretty much out of the blue. It wasn't something that we were looking for. We were approached and we explored the opportunity. We undertook all the necessary due diligence. Board intervened and interviewed and went through the process like any other employee would. Scott Fulton is incredibly well known within the industry as a head recruiter. He has a record in that area second to none. He came very, very highly recommended by a number of leading voices within the game itself. And so the board were suitably impressed, sufficiently to offer employment to Scott, which he gratefully accepted. He's been with us now for a week or two, just getting his feet wet, I think, and meshing himself into the West Tigers culture and ethos and the like, and moving forwards. As to what we can expect from Scott, I think the short answer is players. Scott has been assigned the task as head recruiter to focus primarily on the top 30. That's what he'll be doing. He has hit the ground running. He's very excited about the prospect of working with the West Tigers and the possibilities that may present to themselves to the West Tigers over the next short term and then the mid-term as well. He is a resource that, as I said, made himself available to this club. I know that there are other clubs very interested in Scott as well. And fortunately, we were able to present a well enough case and vision that I think was attractive to Scott, and he joined the club. But I did not know the man before he joined. I don't think, Justin, you did. Did you know him?
Yeah,
Scott.
Yeah.
But very, very impressed with him. Very impressed. I may have met him once. I think at Brookvale. I think someone introduced us.
I don't think someone with Scott's pedigree or experience in the game makes a decision like this lightly. Yep. And I think when we certainly spoke to him, he saw enormous upside, not only in the current roster, but in the structure of the club and how we're heading.
Okay. Question for you. Can you shed any light on recruitment plans for next season, given Adam's injury situation and with both Luke Brooks and Brandon Wakeham both off contract?
No, we've been fairly committed to the process of making sure that retention and recruitment is something that remains within. What I can say is that we will continue to, on a daily basis, now working with Scott and the coaches in regards to always looking for talent to add to what I already think and believe is a really exciting roster. So every single day we're having those conversations. The process hasn't changed in regards to how strategic and patient we've been in regards to recruitment. What I can say is I saw Adam today. Adam is sort of about 6 or 7 weeks ahead already of what was originally scheduled for his recovery. So he's had the first operation and now goes back in 7 weeks from today for the second operation. So that's certainly pleasing. But no, to answer your question, we're obviously always talking about it. We're going to remain consistent in our approach. When we do make signatures or have signatures, then we'll let people know. Until then, it will remain internal to us. But certainly we're working really diligently to make sure that we bring the right people to the club.
Outstanding. Also, this week we're celebrating, of course, two of our players being selected for the Blues, Appy and Stefano. Now, Stefano was previously in the train-on squad. I think it might have been a couple of years ago. Appy, of course, has been a regular in and out of the Blues team. What do you see as the benefits to the club like the West Tigers of players being selected for representative honours? What do they bring back to the club?
Well, firstly, on behalf of, I'm sure, all fans and members, and certainly on behalf of the board and the club here, that I think it's really important to acknowledge what a outstanding achievement that is for both Appy and Big Steph. So we've passed on that. Congratulations last week when it occurred. To me, it's fairly simple. I mean, having two people in that environment, it's the best of the best that are selected. They bring back learnings and benchmarking, and then add that and filter that through the group. You've seen the successful sides over the last 5-6 years have a lot of representation at that level, so it can do nothing other than be of benefit to not only the club but also the playing group.
I think we've seen Abby's been playing at the elite level now for many, many years, of course, but we did see a real jump or substantial improvement in Steph the last time he went to the Blues camp and came back, and we see now what he's doing this year. One can only envisage what he's going to be like when he comes back to the club after a week or two in camp.
And I think you can see, internally here, when you look at people like Steph, like Appy comes in as a natural leader. Steph's really evolved and grown as a leader in that space. And, his work ethic around this place when there's off days is extraordinary. Like there's a couple that come in with regularity, and he's certainly one of them, leading from the front. And that comes from being in that environment at that level.
I think Steph gives the impression sometimes that he's quiet by nature, but I don't think he is. I think he's a far more assertive personality than many people give him credit for.
I think he certainly has really strong values and high standards, and he's certainly not afraid to have robust discussions or call people out that aren't adhering to those standards. Lee, the addition of John Dorahy just over a month ago now to the boards will bring and is bringing plenty of rugby league knowledge and more club DNA. And he's got a strong link to Western Suburbs Magpies. How best do you see John's appointment benefiting West Tigers?
Well, John Dorahy, his nickname, of course, when he was playing was Joe Cool, and he is no different today. He is such a relaxed, chilled, comfortable, confident human being, and he is a gentleman's gentleman. And, of course, he has a pedigree when it comes to rugby league, having played, I think it was 100-something games for West Magpies before he moved over to Manly. And also he has a lot of business acumen, of course, being on various boards and businesses throughout his adult life, including, I think, Deputy Mayor of Wollongong Council for many, many years. So credit to Wes Ashfield, who appointed John to the board of the West Tigers. I think it was a masterstroke. As I say, he brings a quiet air of confidence to our board meetings. The fact that he does have that experience within the game itself, I think, lends itself to a lot of credibility when he makes certain suggestions or when he offers advice to the board about a selection criterion or the players or the coaching, whatever it might be, because he speaks from experience. Now, one of the criticisms that the board has received, of course, and you and I in particular, lack of football IQ and football nous. I don't think that's right, Justin. Anyway, move on. I get my football IQ from those that advise me. I reach out to people that do know. But John's another resource, another utility for the board. But as I say, he brings that level of experience and knowledge and understanding of the game, but also coupled with a very impressive business acumen that I think will stand in good stead for the West Tigers moving forwards. We also have on the board, of course, Danny Stapleton, who played for Balmain. He's got a history within the game itself. And the others, though, have a very, very long history and connection to the game itself, predominantly through administration and the like. So it's a really nice balance now. It really is a nice balance. So he will be an incredible asset to the West Tigers moving forwards.
And I think it's fair to say too, and not talking out of school, that we do often review through the governance a skills matrix on the board and ensure that we actually do have the right people with the right skill sets adding the right amount of value.
Yep, agreed. All right, question for you from Karen Stewart. Thank you very much, Karen. Two questions, in fact. Do we have a Members' Day planned for this year, and will members have an opportunity to tour the Centre of Excellence?
Karen, thank you very much for the question and for your ongoing support. Firstly, we have had a West Tigers hosted Members' Day. We had a Christmas barbecue, obviously. and also a field day earlier this year. What we are looking at is obviously working now towards having another one at some stage later in the year. In regards to the can members come in here, obviously with in excess of 20,000 members, there'd be nothing more than what I would love to have all 20,000 come through. We've just got to work through in what format that can happen, because realistically that's very challenging. But certainly we're continually looking into how we can get members and fans in here. There's obviously money can't buy experiences that some people have been afforded to. There's been some membership events here. I think we had two 10-year membership events here, of which they had tours, of which I think there was 60 and 70 respectively over consecutive nights as a consequence of COVID interrupting that process 3-4 years ago. So we'll continue to look to hold as many events here. The great thing about this facility is that we don't have to now go off-site, and we can actually activate internally here, which is really cool. Lee, is it true that our home games will be played at only Leichhardt and Campbelltown from 2024? That's Karen again. So that was 3 questions she had, Lee, not 2.
Well, in fact, there's the 4th. The one after that's a question from Karen as well. So she's done. It's outstanding, Karen. Well, that shows how engaged and invested you are, and thank you for that. It's almost true. Assuming there are 12 home games, the board has ratified a proposal whereby 5 will be played at Leichhardt, 5 will be played at Campbelltown Stadium. We have committed to Tamworth for our country game, and there will also be the home game played at Magic Round, to which we are committed only until next year, I think 2024, and then we'll revisit that thereafter. So the board have now taken the forensic decision of returning to our cultural roots, back to Leichhardt, back to Campbelltown Stadium. We have been nomads for quite some time. So moving forwards, we've decided that we are going to develop this home ground fortress type mentality that we are going to identify as being based at Leichhardt and Campbelltown Stadium, our home traditional home grounds, and moving forwards. And I think even to the extent that this club has made a financial commitment to those grounds. There is a cost involved, of course, because there is a benefit to us in playing at CommBank and Accor, and we're prepared to give that up to play at our home grounds. But having said that, we will make the commitment, but we do look to local and state governments to make a similar commitment that if they want us as tenants at these grounds for the long term, then they need to find the funding to upgrade these facilities, because it's not just a matter of upgrading, Leichhardt Oval, for example, for the players, but also for our fans and supporters who turn up so they can get the best game day experience available. We've secured $46 million of funding. $46 million, I think, is the figure, for a new centre of excellence at the northern end of Campbelltown Stadium. So that's the beginning, I think, a very important beginning to perhaps a redevelopment of Campbelltown. But we can't stop there. We've got to keep going and pushing. So we're pushing. We're dealing with all these councils, Inner West, Liverpool, and Campbelltown as potential stakeholders. We're very open to continuing these discussions. But we really want to provide all our teams, our players, our coaches, and all our supporters the best game day experience that we can in our traditional cultural backyard.
Very good answer, Lee. I will add that we are working with both councils at the moment to come up with agreements on that, and certainly our intent, as Lee alluded to, is to go back to our suburban grounds. I think it's of note too that it's a significant financial hit that we take, but it's one that the club is taking really seriously in getting back to our roots and our spiritual homes, and doing it in a way where we can somehow modernise the facilities to make it fit for purpose, not just for our athlete, but for our fans and members, without taking away from the mystique and the heritage that exists on both grounds. So we'll continue to fight the fight in regards to looking for funding. We're very strong about where we believe funding should go under a state-based stadia strategy. We certainly don't believe in its current form it's the right decisions, but we'll continue to work on that, and we're also working behind the scenes on other solutions at the moment to try and make both of these stadiums long-term facilities for us, because the reality is that we are not competitive unless we do get a fit-for-purpose stadia upgrade on both of them, and then that decision needs to be made at that particular time whether we continue down there without government support.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is a distinct and palpable advantage to some of these clubs that have these facilities available to them. Parramatta, for example, I don't think it's a coincidence that Parramatta's rise in fortunes over the last few years is tied into that stadium, the new stadium, which they've created that fortress-type mentality. And I think it's inherently unfair throughout the competition if all clubs cannot enjoy that sort of experience. So there's a lot of work to be done behind the scenes.
It's probably our biggest challenge as a club.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's our biggest challenge is because we can't control the outcome.
Yeah. And of course, with the announcement of the last few days, I think the response on social media, for example, has been very positive.
Yep.
Our next game is at Campbelltown.
Yes,
Friday
Friday
night against
Friday.
Yeah, this Friday against the Raiders. So it would be really interesting to see what the turnout is like, and we really would encourage all of our fans and supporters and members to come out and support the club and support the team on the Friday night, particularly after the last showing by the team.
Well, it actually adds to our argument when going to councils and going to state government when we have a full packed suburban ground.
Agreed. Nothing better than 17,000 people or so at Campbelltown.
Lee, a question from Esther. How can we as members get more involved with the club to build a great volunteer community and support our team program?
Okay. Well, I understand that we do have a volunteer program.
Yes.
Launched this year.
Yes, correct. Sorry.
Okay. You would know much more about it.
We also got a group that we have a volunteer program, and we've also had previously a group of members that come in and add their opinions to what the club should be doing, which is usually about 10 members. They come in and they sit down with us on every second month, every 6 weeks, and strategically discuss whether it's membership packages, whether it's digital content, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's game day, whether it's jersey designs, because we are very much aware that sitting here, we certainly don't know everything. And the opinion of our members is really welcomed and often utilised within the discussions around what we do around our commercial programs.
Oh, very much so.
Are we keeping this team, or are the management going to sell all our good players off to other teams? Lisa Hutton.
Thank you, Lisa, for the question. And the answer is no, we are not going to sell our good players off to other teams. We have a very vigorous, strong, committed list management committee that comprises a number of invested individuals, chaired by a board member, Danny Stapleton. Justin's on it, Mark Sawicki, the CFO, make sure that we don't overspend. We have our recruiters, of course, head coach Tim Sheens and Benji. They sit there and they go through all of these depth charts and they work out all the pathway programs, where the young ones are, where they will be next year, the year after, in 5 years' time, what our roster looks like, our top 30. Do we have enough of these sorts of players? Do we need more of these sorts of players? Who's coming through? Who's likely to move, et cetera, et cetera? There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. But we have made an absolute commitment, and I think you can see that we're bearing the fruits of that now, to those who have come through and those who are starting to show their wares. Someone like Staffordale, for example, he's now played 50 games, and Tim has always said that they need 50 games before they can actually be recognised as a first grader, and we saw that in spades, of course, in the last game against the Cowboys. So we are very conscious of the players that we have. We are very conscious of the players who are coming through our pathways programs. We're very conscious of areas within our top 30 that may need to be strengthened, and they're working on that behind the scenes, hence why we have these recruiters. But it's a balancing act, of course, because as your young ones come through and progress and become better and better footballers, so does their value. And it becomes increasingly difficult then for a club, and you see that with a lot of the successful clubs. They're very difficult for them. Penrith is a great example. Almost impossible to hold on to all of those players. So we are conscious of that. We're very conscious of what our limitations are as far as salaries and the salary cap is concerned. We work within that, of course, and we manage that very, very carefully to find the right balance between those players who are serving their purpose now, those players who are coming behind them through the pathways programs, and what this club may need next year, the year after, or in 5 years' time. So the short answer is we are not going to sell off our good players.
And there's never a decision that's taken lightly.
No,
I mean, albeit this is absolutely a business and we're here to win games of NRL and now NRLW, the reality is there's people involved as well. So with every decision that we make, and there's no more robust discussions than happen or occur within that list management committee meeting. And within every decision, we have a simple mantra, which is if it's going to add more value and improve the roster by the decision we're making. And albeit you may not see it as short-term sometimes, there's certainly always a benefit to what we're doing, and that's our intent always.
We saw it only very recently, didn't we, with the release of a top 30 player to another team.
Yes.
There was a very cogent argument put forward by the list management committee as to why that should occur. But having said that, I mean, it broke my heart letting that player go, because he is such a nice fellow, such a good family man. He was good for the club in terms of culture and the like. But as you say, it's a business. It's mercenary in many respects. It's unfortunate. But there are good reasons for making these sorts of decisions, but they're never easy. Never
easy.
Nah,
never easy at all.
Because there's individuals involved. These are real life human beings with families, partners, whatever. They base themselves in a particular region or an area, or overseas in New Zealand or in Queensland, wherever it might be, and they're disrupted. I mean, we're not at Moneyball stakes yet, but we may be heading that way.
Yeah, and on that, obviously you refer to Joe Offengowie, and on behalf of the club, we obviously couldn't thank him enough. His family, his commitment to this organisation has been second to none. As you said, he has been an outstanding, firstly, human and young man, family man, but also a great leader around the club. And one of the tough decisions, but a decision that we believe wholeheartedly has been the right decision for all parties. So, we wish Joe and his family all the best, as we always do. Lee, in regards to obviously our 20,000 fans and members, and there's been a whole raft of challenges in your time with the club as chair. What would you say to them in regards to where we are as a club, and what would you say to them where we believe the club is heading? Well,
firstly, I would say thank you. We've been through the most difficult 12 months this club has ever experienced, of course, with our first wooden spoon last year, something that none of us would have ever anticipated. But I believe that was almost the inevitable outcome of the last 3 or 4 years. I think as a club we lost our way. I think we lost our identity. We moved well away from who we were or who we wanted to be. I think we found a bit of that last year, and I think we're finding more of that as time goes on. So firstly, I would like to say to all our supporters and members in particular is thank you. Thank you very much for the financial and the emotional investment that you have made into this club. It is very much appreciated. It is recognised. And as I say, it goes a long way to sustaining the success that this club should achieve, I think, moving forwards over the short to long term. Where we are at the moment, we're still anchored towards the bottom of the ladder, of course. It wasn't a great start to the season, 0-7. But having said that, it didn't feel like 0-7. We played well. We played very well in many of those games, and but for a little bit of luck going our way, it could have been a very different outcome. I think we've seen recently how well this team can perform. I think the challenge moving forwards is going to be consistency. We all know that they can defend very well, and we know that they can attack now, having put 66 points on the Cowboys, so they've got that right. It's just a matter of consistency moving forwards. But everyone's made an absolute commitment to this team and the coaching structure. It is well-resourced. It is well-funded. In fact, we're spending a lot more now, aren't we, on the football department than we ever have.
A lot more.
So I don't think there's anything they've ever asked for that we haven't said yes to. So they're spoilt. So we need to see results now. That's what we need to see, and that's what we want for our supporters. So I truly believe that we will continue to move forwards. And I would think, and I'm not going to throw out any sort of fearless projections and the like, but as I said earlier, I think the idea is what's happening is there is a transition, that this team is the whole structure is changing and growing, and these young ones, and there's some very young players still in this team. I think Fanua is 20.
Could be playing flag.
I mean, it's embarrassing how good he is.
Jareem flag.
Yeah, just embarrassing how good these young ones are. So imagine what they're going to be like at 23 or 24 when they get a couple of years under their belt. And I think that's what we're building towards, so that in the not too distant future, we will be a very competitive team. And when I say competitive, I mean challenging for premierships. That is what we're aiming for, and nothing less than that would be acceptable.
And of course, on the back of those comments, we're very fortunate and excited to have locked in the full complement of roster for the NRLW in our inaugural season. So
very happy.
Training starts, I think, this week, which is awesome. So you can see some of the players coming in now, getting familiar with the facility. So that's another really exciting opportunity for the club. In regards to some banter, I noticed on the golf course last week we had the annual West Tigers Golf Day at Camden Valley Lakeside. I noticed your team wasn't that great. So commiserations. I also noticed that we were right up there.
Oh, please. You cheat.
Well,
anyways, the reality is
Benji.
I used to play golf quite a bit when I was younger, and I was half decent, but I don't know what's happened, but the game has just left me completely. Like, what I play does not resemble golf.
No.
It would not yet. If someone saw me on the golf course and said, what is he playing? I don't think they would be able to identify the game as golf.
A lot of people did say that.
I'm sure.
Last week.
That is how bad it's become. I think we need to play a little bit more.
Oh, I like that. Anything else, Lee, before we go?
No. Look, I just want to, as I say, extend our appreciation, our thanks to all our fans and supporters and our members. The response to the game, the win the last outing against the Cowboys was overwhelming. That feeling at Leichhardt Oval, 12,000 people, perfect weather conditions, perfect field, Luke's milestone game, Stafford's milestone games, the genuine happiness in the players. If we can just bottle that, that is who we are as a club and moving forwards. And that was one of the best experiences I've ever had with this organisation, and I would really like a lot more of them. So, and I know I speak on behalf of the supporters and members as well, because I saw in the crowd, I saw the response. No one left. Everyone was still there cheering Luke on at the end of the game. And that's what we want. A happy club is a successful club.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're all striving to do, make every fan and member really proud to be associated with the club and be a part of it. Thank you again for everyone for tuning in. We really do appreciate your support. Lee, thank you very much. I know you're a busy person. Obviously, you've been working hard today. Oh, no, that's right. You played golf again. But thank you very much. We look forward to seeing everyone at Campbelltown Stadium on Friday night, 8 p.m. v Canberra, and looking forward to a really good display from our boys. And then looking forward to seeing you also over the ensuing next couple of weeks. Thank you again.